The coffee mug shattered against the floor of the Federal Bureau's evidence room, its contents splashing across Logan Reed's worn work boots. No one bothered to look up except for Special Agent Victoria Keller, whose ice-blue eyes narrowed at the lanky janitor hastily collecting ceramic shards. For 3 years, Logan had been invisible here, pushing his cleaning cart through halls of power. But as agents discussed the third victim of the Clockwork Killer, Logan noticed a detail in the crime scene photo they'd all missed. His hand trembled slightly as he mopped the spill, eyes averted. Could a man who cleaned up other people's messes possibly see what an elite task force of federal agents couldn't? 8 years ago, Dr. Logan Reed had been the Bureau's rising star, a behavioral analyst with an IQ of 160 whose pattern recognition abilities bordered on preternatural. But that was before his wife Catherine's murder remained unsolved, before his subsequent breakdown that the Bureau labeled a psychological liability, before his credentials were quietly revoked while he was on leave caring for his traumatized 6-year-old daughter, Emma. Now, at 42, Logan lived in a modest apartment, raising 12-year-old Emma alone, working nights as the Bureau's contracted custodian, a position he'd taken initially to search for Catherine's file, but kept because it provided stability for Emma. Most agents assumed he was just another blue-collar worker. None knew he could recite their case notes from memory, after a single glance, or that he kept a journal detailing connections they missed. Special Agent Victoria Keller had ascended to lead the Violent Crimes Division through discipline and brilliance. At 38, she was known for her photographic memory, uncompromising standards, and the emotional distance she maintained from colleagues and suspects alike. Her record was nearly flawless, until the Clockwork Killer began leaving bodies with vintage timepieces placed in their hands, each victim seemingly random, each crime scene immaculate. 3 months, 3 victims, 0 substantial leads. The pressure from the director was mounting daily, and Victoria's legendary composure was beginning to show hairline fractures. Her team didn't see it, but Logan did. He noticed how she arrived earlier each morning, how the circles under her eyes darkened, how she'd begun to twist her grandmother's silver ring, when reviewing autopsy reports, a tale of anxiety few would recognize. Logan had cultivated invisibility as both shield and tool. While dusting shelves or emptying trash, he absorbed case details, witness statements, and forensic reports. His silence wasn't merely self-preservation, it was the quiet dignity of a man who refused to be defined by loss. At night, after Emma fell asleep, he'd sit at their small kitchen table, piecing together what the agents couldn't see, drawing connections they were too close to notice. "Dad, you're doing that thing again," Emma had said the previous night, finding him surrounded by newspaper clippings and notes. At 12, she was perceptive beyond her years, carrying both her mother's artistic sensitivity and her father's analytical mind. "Just some puzzles, sweetheart," he'd replied, quickly covering his work. "Helps me relax." But they both knew the truth. The man who cleaned up other people's messes by day was silently hunting monsters by night, not for glory or redemption, but because patterns left unrecognized kept him awake, and because he'd made a promise at Catherine's grave that no other family would be left with unanswered questions if he could help it. The emergency alarm blared through Bureau headquarters at 7:43 a.m., sending agents scrambling toward the secure server room. Logan, who had been finishing his night shift, pressed himself against the wall as tactical teams rushed past, weapons drawn. Through fragments of radio chatter, he pieced together the situation. Someone had breached the Bureau's classified database, potentially compromising ongoing investigations, including the Clockwork Killer case. Inside the server room, Victoria stood rigid as technicians frantically traced the intrusion. "How long?" she demanded. 27 minutes before the security protocols detected it, the lead IT specialist replied. "They accessed case files from at least 12 active investigations. And you're telling me our multi-million-dollar security system didn't catch this until they were already out?" Victoria's voice remained controlled, but Logan, emptying a nearby trash bin, recognized the tight set of her jaw. It was sophisticated, Agent Keller. They knew exactly what they were looking for, and precisely how to get in and out. The Bureau director arrived, his face ashen. "This doesn't leave this room. Assemble a team to assess the damage, but keep it tight, 3 people max with clearance." As the room cleared, Logan noticed something odd about the security panel near the door, a nearly imperceptible discoloration around the biometric scanner. Having cleaned every inch of the building for years, he knew when something looked different. While retrieving his cart from the hallway, he glanced at the visitor log on the security desk. A maintenance worker had signed in at 4:15 a.m. for a scheduled server update that Logan knew wasn't on the calendar. Back in the server room, accusations flew as department heads sought someone to blame. "This has to be internal," argued Agent Reynolds, Victoria's second in command. "No external hacker gets past our firewalls without help." Victoria paced the room, her mind racing. What exactly did they access? I need specifics, not theories. Primarily the Clockwork case files, the technician confirmed. They downloaded everything: crime scene photos, witness statements, forensic analyses. But they also accessed personnel files of agents assigned to the case. As the meeting adjourned, Logan carefully maneuvered his cart toward the scanner panel. When no one was looking, he quickly swabbed the surface with a cleaning cloth, tucking it into his pocket rather than discarding it. Victoria, exiting the room, nearly collided with his cart. For a moment, their eyes met. Logan quickly looked down, but not before Victoria noticed something in his gaze that seemed oddly out of place. Not the deference of service staff, but analytical sharpness that vanished as quickly as it had appeared. "Excuse me, ma'am," Logan murmured, stepping aside. Victoria paused, studying him briefly. "Have you been working here long?" "3 years, ma'am." "Did you notice anyone unusual in this area early this morning?" Logan hesitated. Offering information meant visibility, something he'd carefully avoided. But withholding it meant potentially letting a killer continue unchallenged. "There was someone," he said quietly. "Building maintenance. Not regular staff, I know all of them. This person had the right uniform, but the wrong shoes." Victoria's eyes narrowed. "Wrong shoes?" "Yes, ma'am. Maintenance wears steel-toed boots with rubber soles. Company policy. This person wore tactical boots similar to what your agents wear in the field." For the first time, Victoria truly looked at the janitor before her, noting his measured speech, his observational precision. "What's your name?" "Logan Reed, Mom." "Well, Mr. Reed, I'd like you to come with me and tell our security team exactly what you saw." That evening, Logan sat at his kitchen table, examining the security panel swab under a microscope he'd salvaged from a university dumpster years ago. Emma worked on her science project nearby, occasionally glancing at her father's intense concentration. "Dad, you've got that look again," she said, putting down her pencil. "What look is that?" he asked, not looking up. "The one you get when the puzzle pieces start fitting together." Logan hesitated. He'd always tried to shield Emma from this side of his life, but at 12, she was becoming too perceptive to fool with simple deflections. "Just something interesting at work," he said carefully. "Someone accessed a secure area, and I noticed traces of a compound on the scanner. It's designed to mimic fingerprint patterns." Emma studied the microscope slide. "Like in that movie where they used fake fingerprints to steal the diamond?" Logan smiled slightly. "Similar concept, more advanced execution. This is military grade." "Are you going to tell them?" Emma asked quietly. The question hung in the air. For 3 years, Logan had maintained his cover, collected information without revealing his abilities. Breaking that pattern meant exposure, and potentially reopening wounds he'd fought to close. "I'm not sure they'd listen, sweetheart." Emma's eyes, so much like her mother's, held his gaze steadily. "Mom always said that doing the right thing isn't about whether people listen, it's about whether you speak up when it matters." The next morning, Logan arrived at headquarters earlier than usual. He carefully placed a sealed envelope on Victoria's desk, containing his findings about the compound and his theory about how the security breach had been executed unsigned, but with enough technical detail to be credible. By mid-morning, the building was buzzing with renewed activity. Logan, dusting bookshelves in the conference room adjacent to Victoria's office, overheard her conversation with the Bureau's chief forensic scientist. "The compound analysis confirms it," the scientist was saying. "Someone used a synthetic film to bypass our biometric scanners. Military application, not commercially available." Later that day, Logan was emptying trash bins when Victoria approached him directly, holding the envelope. "Interesting reading material, Mr. Reed," she said quietly. "Particularly coming from someone with no formal training in forensic chemistry." Logan's heart hammered against his ribs, but his expression remained neutral. "I don't know what you mean, Agent Keller." "I think you do." She held his gaze steadily. "The question is why a janitor would recognize a military-grade compound designed to breach biometric security, and why he wouldn't take credit for a discovery that's just advanced our investigation significantly." Before Logan could respond, his phone vibrated. A text from Emma's school. She had fallen during gym class and needed to be picked up. "Is everything all right?" Victoria asked, her tone softening marginally. "My daughter," Logan explained, already reaching for his coat. "School emergency. I need to go." Victoria nodded. "We'll continue this conversation another time, Mr. Reed." "Count on it." That evening, after settling Emma with her homework and an ice pack for her bruised knee, Logan received an unexpected knock at his apartment door. Through the peephole, he saw Victoria Keller standing in the hallway, looking distinctly out of place in her tailored suit amid the building's worn carpet and flickering hallway lights. When he opened the door, her eyes took in everything: the modest apartment, the medical textbooks partially visible on shelves, the child science project on the dining table. "Agent Keller," Logan acknowledged, surprise evident in his voice. "How did you find you? Your address is in your employment file." She held up a file folder. "May I come in? I have some questions that can't wait until morning." Once alone, Victoria wasted no time. Dr. Logan Reed, behavioral analyst, Ph.D. from Georgetown, IQ 160, author of Predictive Pattern Recognition in Serial Offender Behavior. Former FBI consultant until 8 years ago. Logan's face remained impassive, but his hands tightened almost imperceptibly on the back of a chair. "I did some research after our conversation," Victoria continued. "Your file makes for interesting reading. Why is a man with your qualifications mopping floors at the bureau instead of consulting on cases?" "I think you know the answer to that already," Logan replied quietly. "Otherwise, you wouldn't be here alone, off the record." Victoria placed several crime scene photos on the table: the 3 Clockwork victims. 3 months. 3 victims. No progress. Then suddenly, an anonymous tip about military-grade biometric forgery compounds that puts us back in the game. Her eyes locked with his. "I don't believe in coincidences, Dr. Reed." "Neither do I, Agent Keller." Logan finally sat down, gesturing for her to do the same. "What exactly are you asking?" "I'm asking if you've been investigating these murders independently. And if so, what you've found that we haven't." The moment stretched between them a precipice. For Logan, the choice was stark: remain safely invisible or step back into a world that had once broken him. For Victoria, it was equally momentous. Admitting she needed help from someone the Bureau had discarded. "The timepieces aren't random," Logan finally said, moving to a map on his wall. "They're German-made, pre-1940s. Each was purchased from estate sales within the last year by shell companies. The victims aren't connected, but their locations are." He pointed to pins on the map. "They form a pattern, a constellation. Orion. The next victim will be here." He indicated an empty space on the map. Victoria stared at the map, then back at Logan. "How long have you known this?" "I confirmed it yesterday." "The watch trace elements would have been in our forensic reports," Victoria finished. "Reports you shouldn't have access to." "I don't need access to know what to look for," Logan replied. "I just need to observe." Before Victoria could respond, Emma appeared in the doorway, pajama-clad and solemn. "Dad, it's time for my medication." The professional mask slipped as Logan immediately moved to his daughter, his voice softening. "Of course, sweetheart. I'll get it." Victoria watched their interaction, the gentle efficiency with which Logan prepared Emma's medication, the practiced routine of care. When he returned, something had shifted in her assessment of him. "Tomorrow morning, 7 a.m., my office," she said, gathering her files. "Bring everything you have on this case." At the door, she paused. "And Dr. Reed? If you're right about the next location, we have less than 48 hours before the killer strikes again." At precisely 7 a.m., Logan stood outside Victoria's office, no longer in his janitor's uniform but dressed in pressed slacks and a button-down shirt, holding a worn leather messenger bag containing 8 years of private case notes. She opened the door before he could knock. "You're punctual." "Old habits," he replied, entering an office he'd cleaned hundreds of times but never been invited into. Victoria had transformed one wall into a comprehensive caseboard overnight, incorporating elements from Logan's map. "I've been reviewing your theory since last night. The constellation pattern, island. Compelling, but not conclusive," Logan finished, setting his bag on the chair. "Not yet." Victoria crossed her arms. "Before we continue, I need to understand your involvement. Why the secrecy? Why not simply approach us with your insights?" Logan's laugh held no humor. "The Bureau made it abundantly clear 8 years ago that my insights were no longer welcome." "That was before my time," Victoria said. "I've reviewed your personnel file, but the details of your departure are surprisingly vague." Logan unzipped his bag, avoiding her gaze. "My wife was murdered 8 years and 4 months ago. Random home invasion, according to official reports. I knew better: the pattern, the precision, the lack of typical forensic evidence. I became obsessed with finding connections. The Bureau decided my grief had compromised my judgment." Victoria absorbed this, connecting dots. "So you took a janitor position to maintain access to Bureau resources." "I took the position to support my daughter," Logan corrected firmly. The access was a secondary consideration. Victoria studied him, reassessing. How many cases have you consulted on without our knowledge? 17, Logan admitted. This is the first time I've directly intervened. Why now? Because the stakes are different. The Clockwork Killer isn't finished, he's building towards something specific. Victoria gestured to his bag. Show me. For the next hour, Logan methodically laid out his evidence patterns in victim selection, crime scene arrangements, microscopic trace evidence consistencies that the Bureau's analysts had missed. Victoria listened without interruption, her analytical mind processing, challenging, connecting. The timepieces are commemorative, Logan explained, showing her magnified images. Each marks a specific historical event in pre-war Germany. Together, they're telling a story one the killer believes is important. So our killer has connections to Germany, possibly military, Victoria mused, adding notes to the board. Not necessarily. The watches themselves are symbolic, it's their placement and the victim locations that matter. The killer is recreating a historical pattern in modern context. Their discussion flowed with surprising ease, two exceptional minds finding unexpected synchronicity. As the building began filling with arriving agents, Victoria made a decision. We need to move this operation off-site, she said. Too many questions if you're seen here out of uniform. I have a shift at noon, Logan reminded her. Not anymore. I've arranged a temporary reassignment for you, special consultant status, security clearance reinstated provisionally. Logan's surprise was evident. How did you manage that without raising flags? I have some discretionary authority for time-sensitive cases, Victoria replied, gathering files. And I was careful with the paperwork. As far as anyone needs to know, you're a civilian analyst, helping with geographic profiling. They relocated to a rarely used satellite office, where Logan could work without scrutiny from agents who knew him only as maintenance staff. By mid-afternoon, they had identified 3 potential target sites, matching the constellation pattern, narrowing the time frame to the next 48 hours based on the killer's established cycle. Near midnight, Logan's phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. Activity at Site 2. Sending team to investigate. Stand by. For the next hour, Logan watched remotely as Victoria led a tactical team through an abandoned theater that matched the constellation pattern. As the team conducted their sweep, Logan noticed something in the background of the video feed, a small object glinting on the theater's old ticket counter. He immediately called Victoria. There's something on the counter to your left, looks like metal, possibly another timepiece. Victoria directed her flashlight where indicated. I see it. The camera zoomed in as she approached carefully. It's a watch. Same vintage as the others. She lifted it with gloved hands, revealing what lay beneath a handwritten note addressed to the janitor who sees. Logan's blood ran cold as Victoria read the note aloud. Clever pattern recognition, Dr. Reed. But you're still 2 steps behind. The real game is just beginning. Their eyes met through the video feed, the implications crystal clear. The killer knew who Logan was, knew he was involved, and most disturbingly, had known they would be at this location tonight. Get back to your daughter, Victoria ordered immediately. I'm sending a protective detail to your apartment. The Bureau's conference room hummed with tension as Assistant Director Hargrove addressed the assembled task force. Logan sat in the back corner, deliberately inconspicuous, despite the temporary consultant badge clipped to his shirt. Victoria stood at the front, rigid and formal, fielding increasingly hostile questions. So you're telling me, Hargrove said, voice dangerously quiet, that you authorized a civilian consultant without proper clearance procedures, and in the process, not only failed to apprehend the suspect, but potentially compromised our entire investigation. Sir, the constellation pattern proved correct, Victoria countered evenly. The killer was there, exactly where Dr. Reed predicted. And now the killer knows we're onto him, argued Agent Reynolds. We've lost our primary advantage. We never had the advantage, Logan spoke up suddenly, drawing all eyes. He's been accessing our systems for months, staying 3 steps ahead. Hargrove turned cold eyes toward Logan. And you are? This is Dr. Logan Reed, Victoria introduced. Former Bureau behavioral analyst and the consultant who identified the pattern. Recognition dawned on several faces, particularly the older agents who had known Logan before. Whispers circulated, Catherine Reed's husband and the breakdown case. Dr. Reed, Hargrove acknowledged with thinly veiled skepticism. Your theory about constellation patterns and German timepieces is certainly creative, but hardly constitutes actionable intelligence. Logan remained calm, though Victoria noticed his right hand tightening almost imperceptibly on his notebook. With respect, sir, the killer has now confirmed the pattern by leaving a 4th timepiece at exactly the location we predicted. That's not coincidence. And this note addressed to you specifically? Hargrove pressed. How do you explain the killer's apparent familiarity with you? The implication hung heavy in the air's suspicion that Logan himself might be involved, or worse, responsible. Victoria stepped forward. Sir, Doctor. Reed has been under surveillance since joining our maintenance staff 3 years ago. Standard protocol for anyone with previous clearance working in proximity to classified materials. His movements and communications have been consistently monitored. He couldn't possibly be involved. Logan's eyes flicked to Victoria, surprise briefly crossing his features. He hadn't known about the surveillance, but she had just used it as his alibi. Furthermore, Victoria continued, Dr. Reed's insights have given us our first solid lead in this investigation. The timepieces form a historical narrative, each commemorating a specific event in pre-war Germany. The killer is recreating a historical pattern that led to catastrophe then, and may be planning something similar now. Based on watches? Reynolds scoffed. Based on a sophisticated symbolic system that you've all missed for 3 months, Logan corrected, his professional demeanor finally asserting itself as he approached the evidence board. The victims were chosen because of where they would be found, not who they were. The locations form Orion's constellation, a hunter. The timepieces mark events, leading to the beer hall putsch, Hitler's first attempt to seize power. He turned to face the room. This isn't just serial murder, it's ideological terrorism with a specific endgame. And based on the historical pattern, that endgame is imminent. The room fell silent as Logan systematically broke down the evidence, explaining connections that suddenly seemed obvious once illuminated. Victoria watched the skepticism in her colleague's eyes gradually shift to reluctant consideration. The next target will be a public figure, Logan concluded. Someone symbolic, at a public gathering. Based on the timing pattern and historical parallels, we have less than 24 hours. Hargrove studied Logan with reassessment. And you determined all this while pushing a mop around our offices? I determined it because I was invisible, Logan corrected. People speak freely around maintenance staff. Files get left open. Conversations happen in hallways. I had access to perspectives your agents never see. After a tense moment, Hargrove nodded. Agent Keller, continue working with Dr. Reed, but I want hourly updates, and nothing happens without my authorization. Before Logan could respond to Victoria afterward, his phone rang, the secure line Victoria had provided. His face paled as he answered. Emma? His voice tightened. Where are you? Are you safe? Listening intently, he grabbed a pen, scribbling an address. Stay hidden. I'm coming for you. Hanging up, he turned to Victoria, all professional detachment gone. The killer has Emma. He took her from school using bureau credentials. She managed to hide and call me, but she doesn't know how long until he finds her. Victoria was already moving, grabbing her weapon and jacket. Address? Warehouse District. Pier 17. Logan's hands shook slightly as he gathered his notes. It's a trap. He knows I'll come. We'll come, Victoria corrected firmly. But not alone, and not unprepared. They arrived at Pier 17, a sprawling warehouse complex, partially under renovation. Victoria's tactical team established a perimeter while she and Logan coordinated from the command vehicle, reviewing building schematics. Emma said she was hiding in a room with large windows facing the water, Logan reported. That narrows it to the east side, upper floor. And our killer? Victoria asked. If he's following the historical pattern, he'll want an audience, Logan analyzed. The beer hall putsch was a public spectacle designed to attract attention and demonstrate power. He won't just be waiting for me, he'll be staging something. Victoria nodded grimly. The warehouse renovation. There's a reception tonight, local politicians, developers, press. Perfect target-rich environment. As tactical teams moved into position, Logan and Victoria approached the building from a service entrance, both wearing protective vests. They moved silently through the building's lower level, guided by Logan's memorized floor plan. As they ascended the stairs toward the reception area, the murmur of voices grew louder. Dozens of people gathered, unaware of the danger. Dad? The whispered voice came from a storage closet as they passed. Logan spun, pulling open the door to find Emma crouched inside, pale but unharmed. He gathered her into his arms, relief flooding through him. Are you hurt? He asked urgently, checking her for injuries. No, Emma whispered. He didn't see me hide. But Dad, I saw his face. He looks like. Well done, Dr. Reed. A voice called from the end of the hallway. Right on schedule. Logan pushed Emma behind him as Victoria drew her weapon. Standing 20 feet away was a man in a crisp suit, smiling pleasantly, a man Logan recognized instantly. Marcus Torres, Victoria breathed, stunned to see her colleague. "What are you doing here?" "Completing what began 8 years ago," Torres replied calmly. "Hello, Logan. It's been a while since we worked together." Logan's mind raced, reassembling fragments of memory. "You were on Catherine's case." "Junior agent, recently transferred." "Very good." Torres nodded appreciatively. "Though I was never actually an agent then, just playing one." Infiltrating the bureau was surprisingly easy with the right credentials, just as it was infiltrating your life. "You killed my wife," Logan stated flatly, pieces falling devastatingly into place. "A necessary step," Torres shrugged. "You were getting too close to my network with your pattern recognition. Catherine's murder was meant to break you, and it worked beautifully." The bureau's rising star, reduced to pushing a mop. Perfect containment. Logan studied Torres, seeing beyond the smug exterior to the tactical decisions underneath. "You're lying," he said suddenly. "There is no wider operation. This was always personal, about proving your superiority. The watches, the constellation, the elaborate setup, a narcissist's need for appreciation. You wanted me to solve it, to know it was you." Something flickered in Torres's eyes, a flash of anger breaking through the controlled facade. Logan pressed his advantage, stepping forward. 8 years studying patterns taught me to recognize the most important one: human ego. You killed Catherine because she recognized you when you broke into our home. Not because of any grand plan, but because you made a mistake. Torres's pleasant demeanor cracked. "She was nothing. A complication." "She was everything," Logan replied, his voice deadly calm. "And you've spent 8 years constructing an elaborate fantasy to justify a moment of panic. There is no network, no wider plan. Just a killer trying to mythologize himself." As Torres reached inside his jacket, Victoria fired. The bullet struck his shoulder, sending him staggering backward. Before he could recover, Logan lunged forward with unexpected speed, driving Torres to the ground. Victoria moved swiftly, securing Torres's weapon and handcuffing him as Logan rolled away, breathing heavily. The commotion had alerted security upstairs, and footsteps pounded toward them. "It's not over," Torres hissed as Victoria hauled him to his feet. "You think you've won? You've just played your part." Logan turned away, gathering Emma into his arms, his focus entirely on his daughter's safety rather than Torres's desperate final attempts to maintain control of the narrative. "You're okay," he whispered to Emma. "You're safe now." 3 days later, Logan sat in Assistant Director Hargrove's office as his future was discussed. The Torres case had created shockwaves throughout the bureau, a rogue operative hiding in plain sight for 8 years, using the organization's own resources to commit serial murders. "Dr. Reed, the bureau owes you an apology. Your wife's case was mishandled, and your concerns were dismissed when you deserved our full support. I've been authorized to offer you reinstatement," Hargrove continued. "Full credentials, consulting position with the Behavioral Analysis Unit, effective immediately if you're interested." Logan glanced at Victoria, whose slight smile confirmed she'd advocated for this outcome. "I appreciate the offer," he said finally. "But I need to consider Emma first. The past 8 years haven't just been about Catherine's case. They've been about creating stability for my daughter." As they left the office, Victoria walked Logan to the elevator. "You're turning it down, aren't you?" she asked perceptively. "Not necessarily," Logan replied. "Just approaching it differently than before. I've been offered a teaching position at Quantico. 3 days a week, pattern recognition for new agents. Regular hours, stability for Emma, and still contributing in a meaningful way." Before Victoria could respond, her phone buzzed with a message. Reading it, her expression changed subtly. "What is it?" Logan asked. "Something odd," she replied, showing him the screen, a case file notification about an apparent suicide in a locked room with no signs of entry. Logan scanned the details, his analytical mind automatically assembling the fragments. The angle of entry is wrong for self-infliction, and the timing of lividity suggests the body was moved post-mortem. Victoria's eyes met his. "So not suicide." "Definitely not suicide," Logan confirmed, then caught himself with a small smile. "But that's your case, not mine." The elevator arrived, doors sliding open. As Logan stepped inside, Victoria held the door. "The teaching position starts next month, correct?" 3 weeks from Monday, he confirmed. "That's plenty of time to consult on one more case," she suggested. "Strictly professional capacity, of course." As the elevator doors closed between them, both recognized that something significant had shifted, not just in their professional relationship, but in their understanding of each other. Later that evening, as Logan helped Emma with her science project, his phone chimed with a text from Victoria, file found in Torres's apartment. Old case notes on Catherine. Thought you should see them first. Attached was a photograph of a handwritten note in Catherine's handwriting, a page from her personal journal that had gone missing after her murder. The entry described her noticing someone watching their house, someone she thought looked familiar from Logan's work. "Dad?" Emma asked, noticing his expression. "What is it?" Logan showed her the message. "Something Mom left for us." She saw what no one else did, just like she always could. 1 month later, Logan stood before a classroom of FBI trainees at Quantico, his first lecture as an official instructor. Through the window, he could see Emma sitting in the courtyard, reading while waiting for his class to finish. Pattern recognition isn't just about data points, he told the attentive students. It's about seeing connections others miss. About understanding that sometimes, the absence of evidence is evidence itself. And about recognizing that our own perceptions can be both our greatest strength and our most dangerous blind spot. As the lecture concluded, he noticed Victoria standing at the back of the room. When the room had emptied, she approached. "Impressive first lecture, Professor Reed." "Still feels strange," Logan admitted. "Being visible again." "You were never truly invisible," Victoria replied. "Just overlooked by people who weren't paying attention." They walked together toward the courtyard, where Emma waited. Their working relationship had developed into something neither had anticipated, a partnership based on complementary strengths and mutual respect. "There's a reception Friday for the new BAU team members," Victoria said. "As our consulting analyst, your presence would be appreciated." Logan studied her carefully. "Is that an official request, Agent Keller?" "No," she replied with uncharacteristic hesitation. "It's a personal invitation, Logan." The use of his first name carried weight beyond the simple words. In that moment, Logan recognized another pattern forming, one neither of them had anticipated but both seemed willing to explore. As they walked toward the parking lot, Emma chattering about her project between them, Logan found himself observing the pattern of their footsteps together, 3 different rhythms gradually synchronizing, creating something new and unexpected. "I never properly thanked you," he said quietly to Victoria. "For what?" she asked. "For seeing me," Logan replied simply. "When I'd gotten so used to being invisible." Victoria's professional facade softened. "Maybe we both needed to be truly seen." The next morning, Logan arrived at his office to find a coffee waiting on his desk, made exactly how he preferred it alongside a case file. On top was a note in Victoria's precise handwriting. "For the man who sees what others miss." The janitor who once cleaned up after others had found his way back to creating order from chaos, not despite his journey through invisibility, but because of it. And in that journey, he had found something he hadn't been looking for, not just justice or vindication, but a future where being seen was no longer something to fear, but something to embrace.